When you're trying to find housing, it can be very stressful. You can go to apartment hunt after apartment hunt after apartment hunt and nothing works. Maybe you find a place that you like, but you're not a big fan of the person. Maybe you find a person that you like, but you're not a big fan of the place. Maybe it's money. Maybe it's you have a pet. Maybe it's the location, whatever. There are a lot of factors. It can be a lot, but it doesn't have to be. Hopefully, if you follow the step-by-step guide, it'll make the process a lot smoother and easier, and you can save time. So you don't have to make mistakes that I've made that are very common to make, and honestly, save yourself some. My name is Amarachi, and today this is going to be a video about helping you to find housing in London. I've been an exchange student in the UK for the last year, and I'm going to live here for another year to get my master's. I'm actually living in a flat or an apartment that I found by myself, moved all the way from Texas to London, and came here and found housing. So if you're nervous, you're worried about the process, don't worry. Take a deep breath out. You got this. I have my notes by my side. We're going to get straight into this. And at the end of the video, you actually come with me on two or three apartment tours that I went on specifically for this video, so you can get a vibe of what the experience will look like for you. Okay, cool. Number one. The most important thing, let's start off with, is take your time with this process. It takes quite a while to find an apartment you like if you actually are going in person, and even if you're just searching online. You might message people and they won't get back with you. You might be on a time crunch and feel compelled to just find whatever you can get. But you're technically using maybe like 2 weeks or a month to make a decision that's going to last potentially 6 months to a year. And where you live is kind of the foundation of your entire experience. If you have a hard day and you end it by coming to a place you don't like to live, that is going to negatively impact your quality of life. So it's important just to make sure that you take your time with the process, because you don't want to end up living somewhere you don't like. It's not fun. It's not fun. Okay, so number two are the options that you have with living. And they are, you could live with family and friends, you could live in a dorm, or you could get an apartment. And I'm going to go through the pros and cons really quickly of each of those. Number one, if you live with your family and friends. Number one, free housing and free rent. I'm going to do another video that breaks down my cost of living, or kind of like what I spend in a week, what I spend in a month in London, just to give people an idea of what the cost of living is here. But free housing and free food will save you so much money. That is a big pro of living with family and friends. But on the flip side of that, depending on your relationship with whoever you live, you'll have, I guess, less like independence, less privacy, and maybe like less autonomy over what you can and cannot do regarding like how you move and move out of your place of living. Number two, you could go ahead and stay at student dorms. The pros of that are you're automatically in an environment where you can make friends and meet people who have similar interests to you. Moving to a new country can be kind of lonely and isolating. But if you're in an academic program and if you live in a dorm, you kind of like automatically have friends, which is really nice to have, I guess, that experience embedded into your housing situation. The only con of dorms, and the reason why I chose not to live in dorms, is that like the cost can be higher or just about as equal as getting your own apartment. When you live in a dorm, there are going to be dorm rules about when you can and cannot come out. You're going to be limited in regards to the amount of size, especially during the pandemic. I know that things regarding quarantine were more strictly enforced than they would be if you just stayed at your cousin's house, or if you just stayed in an apartment on your own where there isn't a governing body, quote unquote, to monitor you. So that's the second option. The third option is to get an apartment. The pros of getting an apartment is you can find the area that kind of suits you. You have a lot more options. It can be more costly as a con, and you do need to consider whether you're prepared to like furnish it yourself, whether that comes to like your bedding, whether it comes to, I guess, like amenities for your bathroom if you have one, comes to pots and pans and knives. And so there is an extra added cost that you wouldn't experience if you lived in a dorm and everything was provided, or if you lived with family and friends and they already had everything there. Okay, so now we are on to number three, which is where to find housing. The three resources I suggest that you use, and you can use all of them together, is number one, you can Facebook actually has, on Facebook Marketplace, they have a section specifically for housing, and people post listings for apartments. They have different groups and chat rooms specifically in the London area for students or just new arrivals, new people in search of housing. You can post what you're looking for and your budget. You can also find other people's posts. With Facebook, I've used it before, and the only downside I would say is when you're searching for housing, sometimes people are listing flats, but like flats that they're trying to sell as opposed to flats that they're trying to rent. So it's the market is, or that platform is a little bit more congested. Number two, you can use a platform called Spare Room, which is what I actually use. And Spare Room is really convenient because it's specifically for housing. You can customize it to your different preferences and put in the postcode that you're looking to live in, the number of roommates, whether what gender you prefer to live with, whether you want to be smoking or non-smoking, pet friendly or not. And so it's a lot more customizable, and it's a platform that is specifically made for people looking for apartments, as opposed to like Facebook that just offers it as a service in addition to everything else. And then lastly, there's a platform called Search the Area that I'll go ahead and put a link in the bio to. It's really, really, really resourceful. And actually what it is, it's meant for people who maybe aren't familiar with an area and want to get more information about like the cost of, not the cost of living, but maybe like the cost of like property taxes, average cost of property in the area, different restaurants that you can go to, whether there are parks in the area, what religious centers there are. It really is just supposed to be this holistic guide for people who don't know about the different boroughs in London. Because when I came, I literally just was basing my decision off of what I was comfortable with and what was within my budget. But a resource like this, if I had known about it in the future, would have been really beneficial because you can kind of get a vibe of the area before you make that final decision, or at least use this information to complement your decision. So Facebook, Spare Room, and Source the Area are all resources you can use to search for housing. Now it's down to actual nitty-gritty stuff. You're going to go ahead and click on the listing, message the host or lister, the seller, whatever you want to call them, the landlord, tell them that you're interested in the place and wait for them to get back with you. And it's important to send a lot of messages because some people won't get back with you. Some places will already get taken up. Some people take a long time to reply. So it's best to send multiple requests, even if there's a top place that you want, because you don't want to put all of your eggs in one basket, because it's very easy for things to fall through, whether it's a person decides they don't want to list their apartment, somebody else takes it before you, it's more than you thought, the area isn't what you thought it was, the pictures aren't accurate. So anyway, I went ahead and messaged the seller. Once they got back with me, we confirmed a scheduled time and I went and viewed a couple of apartments. So now we're going to go on to the segment where I'm actually at the apartment viewing. Good morning. It's raining outside, but right now I am headed to my first apartment viewing. We are going to this location, and yeah, I'm about to catch the train. It's about a 30, let me say in one place. I'm about to catch the train. It's about like a 20-30 minute commute. Now when I get there, I'll look at the area. I hope this audio isn't too bad. Oh, I think that's my train. Actually, okay, let me get on the bus. So I'm walking through the neighborhood right now. I'm like 5 minutes from the house. I'm about to go in and meet the owner or the landlord. And so far, like, I think this is, I'm getting a vibe of the neighborhood, how clean it is, how developed it is, what kind of amenities and resources they have. This is about like a 15-minute walk from the bus stop, and usually that happens when you live somewhere cheaper. Like you're going to be further away from public transport, because the closer you are to public transport, that's a more attractive amenity, and it's going to increase the cost of where you live. So this place is pretty far. Not my cup of tea, because I'm always running late and I need to be like literally a hop, skip, and a jump away from the bus, because we need to be there in a jiffy. I should be there pretty soon. I have my mask, and yeah, we'll see. Maybe the inside will sway me, but right now I'm already getting Get Out vibes. Not Get Out as in the movie, but just like, I'm Rachi, this isn't for you. One thing I will say that I didn't say at the start of this video, when I came to London, I actually lived in an Airbnb for a month. And when I lived in an Airbnb, I quarantined because I came during the time of the pandemic, but then I used the remaining like 3 weeks to essentially search for a flat in London because I chose to live in an apartment. Because you might have been asking yourself like, okay, how do I apartment search? Like, where am I gonna live? You can live with friends and family, you can live in a hotel, or you can get an Airbnb. It might be kind of expensive depending on where you stay, but I think that investment is worth it if it means that you're taking your time to find a place that you like, as opposed to just rushing to pick somewhere when you're all the way across the world and you haven't actually seen the place in person. There are times when I went and saw an Airbnb, or not Airbnb, went and saw an apartment flat, only to realize like I live right next to the interstate. Wow, that is going to be extremely annoying for a year. So I'm glad I didn't just sign a lease on that from across the world without knowing if there are grocery stores nearby. How long does it take for me to get to school? Do I like my roommates? Okay, so slightly disheveled, frantic, frazzled, but I'm heading to the second Airbnb option, not Airbnb, room tour that we're going to for the week. I just got off of work, caught the train. It took me about like 40 minutes. I have a 15-minute walk ahead of me. That's already a no for me. Like, I hate long walks from my house to the train station, but there probably is a shorter route that like involves a bus, but I also don't like having to take like 3 buses or 2 trains and a bus and a this and a that and a that and a that to get to where I'm trying to go. Like, can I just show up? Maybe if I had a car or if I had money for an Uber, I could afford that luxury. But since we are living that broke life, JK, I rebuke it in the name of Jesus. But since, since we're operating on limited funds, you don't always get all the glitz and glamour of it. Let me actually make sure I'm walking in the right direction. 2 seconds, please. Okay, I'm glad I checked because I was walking in the wrong direction. But anyway, we're headed to the Airbnb. I'm walking through the neighborhood. Looks very nice. It's very quiet. I see people walking their dogs. There's some car shops. It looks safe. I definitely would be comfortable like walking late at night, coming from the club, coming from B&Q, coming from some event of madness. I feel a little bit more safe in this neighborhood than I did in the first neighborhood that I visited. And I believe this listing is about £600 a month, which isn't a bad price at all because girl, this is so cute.